So I've read the prompt and I've read the passage. Now I need to come up with a thesis. And in order to do this, I want to go back to the prompt again and remind myself. It says that this is about the dynamic of the couple's situation. What is the dynamic of their situation? What does that mean? Dynamic of the couple's situation. The particular situation in which Anne and Wentworth find themselves. Notice it's not Louisa, who's talked a lot about in the passage, but Anne. Okay, and as I go through this passage, I just want to take a minute and figure out again what is exactly going on with their situation. So we know from the first line she didn't mistake him. There was jealousy. And we know at the end, by line 14 of this first paragraph, that this is a man who's sitting down to write about his feelings. And then what do we learn? Of what he had then written, nothing was to be retracted or qualified. He persisted in having loved none but her. So he says in his letter, she's summarizing for us, he says in his letter that he loved no one but her. Now I'm starting to get into the story and think of their dynamic was that his feelings are enduring feelings. They persist. She had never been supplanted. He never even believed himself to see her equal. He persisted. She had never been supplanted. He never. There's a nice little rhythm here that I'm noticing with the syntax. There's a syntactic, let's say, parallelism. And as I'm marking this up, now I could have been marking up as I went, but I was just really trying to survive the passage and understand what's going on. I'm starting to get things that I might be able to talk about in my thesis and in my interpretation. So he had been constant. He believed it to be done. Her character was now fixed on his mind as perfection itself. So what is their dynamic like? Their dynamic is that he thinks she's perfect. And that's a word that's come up multiple times. We see her superiority, her perfection. Let's see, the perfect excellence. So this one dynamic that I'm dealing with here is all about this sense of her superiority, Anne's superiority, and perfection. So what is their dynamic like? There's this asymmetry in his view that she's better than he is. And he begins to see this, and this Louisa person is not her equal at all. Then it's at the beginning of this area up here in lines 40, okay, he began to exalt in estimation the woman he had lost. He started hating himself or his situation, and he was not at liberty. But then notice this. Down here at line 53, Jane Austen gives us an excerpt from the letter. So this is significant. When an author quotes something at length like this, we call it an epistolary intrusion, an epistolary style, when you start connecting letters in a novel. Maybe you read something in your AP Lit class like this. That's something that you can talk about. So I can say epistolary intrusion. That's the fancy word to describe the excerpting of this letter. And let's see, this goes on all the way till the end here of this paragraph. And then we get that he's going to be moving on and things are going to happen after this. So what's the dynamic of their situation? There's a lot of letter writing. There's this other person, Louisa, who came and went in his life, but he persisted, it says, in having loved no one but her. He sees her as perfect. So as I'm writing my thesis, and I don't have a lot of room here to do it, I'll kind of squeeze it into the bottom here. The thesis needs to express the dynamic of their situation. So here's the thesis that won't earn the point. Jane Austen uses literary elements and techniques to express the complex dynamic of the couple's complex situation. You can't just repeat the prompt, you have to respond to the prompt. And again, you can't respond to some other prompt, you have to respond to this one. So my thesis needs to say something about their situation, and I need to say something that I can say, Captain Wentworth views Anne as his superior. And now I want to say, how does Austen convey this? I could say something like, Austen uses syntactic parallelism and epistolary intrusion to convey this dynamic of their situation. That dynamic specifically being Anne is his superior. So that's terribly written. It's sloppy. It's not a perfect draft. I don't need it to be perfect. I can upgrade it when I copy it into my first paragraph. But here's the thing. I want to get at this sense that Captain Wentworth is faithful to her. He is constant. He sees her as excellent and even as perfect. I want that high view of Anne in my description, and I've got a version that works like this. Now keep in mind, you don't need to know what syntactic parallelism or epistolary intrusion are. That's just stuff I have in my head that I was able to use. Maybe you found something else. Maybe you found a different dynamic that you can use. The key is this: you need to have a thesis before you begin planning your essay.